You know what would be a great gift for us all this Christmas season? Is if this nonsense right here finally got stopped.
Nobody has to provide this medication to adolescents. These are not doctors being forced to provide this medication. These are doctors who are wanting to treat their patients in the best way that they know how, based on the best available evidence to us. And these are young people who may have known since they were 2 years old exactly who they are, who suffered for 6, 7 years.
2 years old? Okay. I have obviously got to watch myself in this video, because obviously this is one of those videos where I might say something that might get me removed from the platform for 7 days. And of course, I've already had one community guideline strike this year that I actually went to YouTube, actually tagged them on their Twitter page, because it's the only way you can actually get up with them. They reviewed the video and said that they were wrong, and they actually overturned the strike. However, it costed me 5 days, which really ended up turning into 7 days, because at the time there were no actual stories to report on or even to come back on. And of course, that also kind of threw my algorithm, and it messed up the entire algorithmic timing of this channel for you guys, so that way you guys would be notified when videos came out. But still, make sure you guys please cut the notifications on and all that stuff there. But still, though, at the same time, obviously, I got to watch myself for the purposes of this particular video. Now, before we get started, I want to go ahead and say this right now. If you are of age, if you are an adult human, male, female, if you are an adult, period, I don't think anybody really and truly cares what it is that you do to your body. It is your choice. However, when it comes to little kids, when it comes to children, that right there is when this right here gets a little bit, let's just say, gets a little bit insane, a little bit nutty, if you guys are picking up on my drift. So right now, there's a court case going on, the Supreme Court. And of course, you guys just saw I'm just going to say the name is Strangio. Very, very odd. Sometimes the jokes write themselves. And of course, this court case is going to determine whether children, small children, minors, can get that gender-affirming care that so many parents have been duped by. Some of these parents, I would say, have been duped, but then again, though, some of these parents, I think, are willingly going through with this right here for publicity. I'm just going to go ahead and say it right now. I don't care what anybody thinks. But of course, it's obviously a crime against children. It's a crime against humanity. And right now, the Supreme Court is obviously taking this case up, and they're obviously hearing the oral arguments. Now, before we dive fully into this, and before we dive fully into what the justices were saying, I need to go ahead and kind of play a little bit more of what Mr. Strangio, who, by the way, is an attorney, an ACLU attorney. I need to go ahead and kind of play some of this for you guys, so that way you guys can see exactly where it is that we're going with this.
Revoke Joe Biden's cruel policies on so-called gender-affirming care. I will sign a new executive order instructing every federal agency to cease all programs that promote the concept of sex and gender transition at any age. I will then ask Congress to permanently stop federal taxpayer dollars from being used to promote or pay for these procedures.
Is this case that you are going to argue before the U.S. Supreme Court involving Tennessee relevant to what President Trump?
As Trump should, but of course they may not have to do that, because the Supreme Court more than likely will probably go ahead and vote on this, probably 6-3 or possibly 7-2. We'll get to the justices here in a second, but you guys can obviously see that this right here is something that's obviously going to be brought up probably within the first year of the Trump administration, the second Trump administration, and obviously we're all hoping and praying that Donald Trump actually gets, well, it's not so much Donald Trump. I hope and pray that Republicans and Democrats both can get together and actually pass some legislation ensuring this crap never happens again, because it is, in fact, a crime against children. But let's let this person talk. Let's let this person give their rationale on why it is that they want to hack up kids.
President-elect Trump says he wants to do there.
Yeah, he obviously says a lot of things, and it's causing people a lot of panic for good reason. And it is relevant. And here's why. Because Tennessee's arguments about why the law that they passed doesn't classify or discriminate based on sex is not limited to a state law, and it's not limited to a law that is banning this care for minors. So if Tennessee is successful, if the Supreme Court in essence sides with the government of Tennessee, I think that will open the door to the types of federal bans on this care, not only for minors, but for adults too.
For adults too, you think?
I do. And I think that's one of the things we should be really concerned about. We're hearing a lot about young people can't consent to this care, but it is their parents consenting to this care. And at the end of the day, we have adults who live as transgender people like myself, who have families, who are part of communities, who are part of this society. And if the incoming administration bans our healthcare, that is essentially excising us from this country.
We really don't care what you do, just don't do it to kids. Okay, now obviously I'm playing the back half of that part of the interview first before I play the front part. I think the back half of the interview is the actual meat of this discussion because guess what? There isn't really a whole lot to discuss. There's the 9th and 10th Amendment. Basically, the states have the right to they basically have the say-so in this case, especially when it comes to personal matters like what you guys are hearing about now. So basically what happened is that the state of Tennessee said, look, you cannot give testosterone to little girls who believe that they're boys, and you cannot give the chemical castration, which is what I'm calling for the purpose of this video, because that there's what the hell it really and truly is, the hormone treatment to young boys, or the puberty blockers to young boys who want to become girls. The truth be told is this right here. Most of these people, most of these kids who have, by the way, gender dysphoria, who do have an issue, I'm not denying that it's an issue, so please don't beat me up on that front there too. I've been saying that what really needs to happen is that these kids need some help, and it doesn't help when parents go along with the emotional hostage taking. We'll get to that a little bit more here in a second, but the point is this right here. These children need actual legitimate help. They need spiritual guidance. They need emotional guidance. That right there is what they need. However, in most of these cases, roughly 80%, these kids, these children, by the time they get to age 18, guess what they do? They just either A, turn straight or turn gay. There was also a study that was reported on in this bit here that I'm showing you guys here in the in-card footage, or the side card footage here, that there's a study that recently came out that is showing that about 98% of the children back out of the procedure, back out of the surgery. There's also the case of Jazz Jennings. I don't think I need to bring that back up, but I'll probably link a video that I did on Tim Pool's response to what was going on, or I may even link some stuff in the description box about that there. That right there was a pretty high-profile case on gender-affirming care. And, of course, people got to see exactly what goes on with that process, and they came away thinking to themselves that maybe Jazz Jennings may not have really and truly wanted to transit. Still, the point is this right here. State of Tennessee said, no, we're not going to go through with this right here. We're going to ban this crap. You can do whatever you want to when you get to a certain age, but not when you are a child, not when you are a minor, which is exactly how it should be. Now, me personally, I would hope and pray that nobody would actually go through with this type of stuff. If you guys saw Matt Walsh's What is a Woman, you guys will see certain cases that have been, let's just say, botched. The whole John Money thing, I advise you guys go look into it. It's a pretty bad practice. It's a pretty disgusting practice. And a lot of these people, I personally feel, have been duped. Either way, though, it is insane that we are even having a conversation about this. But I did say that there was more to talk about, and of course, that right there is also the bathroom issue. Let's look at that.
The state of Tennessee told the U.S. Supreme Court, quote, if the government's theory holds, men who identify as women could claim constitutionally based access to women's bathrooms, women's locker rooms, and women's sports. Accepting that theory would perversely erode women's rights and jeopardize landmark statutes protecting women's equal access to schools, winners' podiums, and beyond. What's your response to that?
Well, I obviously disagree with that premise that allowing transgender women into women's sports or women's bathroom is a threat to women, but it is also not the question before the court in this case. And in fact, it is a totally independent question about whether a law that bans medical care for transgender adolescents discriminates against people based on sex versus these separate cases that preceded any of these healthcare bans will continue to be litigated in the courts regardless of the outcome here. So that clearly is conflating a bunch of different questions. The question before the court.
Just so that way people in the back can hear, this right here is once again another form of manipulation of language. This right here is not medical care. It's mutilation and experimentation. If anything, if the Supreme Court was to rule and rule the way I believe that they will rule, and I'll explain that here in a second, this would actually uphold women's rights. It would uphold women's rights because what it would do is it would ensure that men can't go in women's bathrooms or spaces. Like I said, this is the level of lunacy that we're looking at here, okay? There's obviously a lot more that was said by this guy, this person, whatever he is, stranger. There's a lot that was said here, okay? A lot. And like I said, I got to try to shorten this video down, and I got to be very careful with my language. And of course, it's also the first video of the day because we have another video coming out on the Hunter Biden pardon, which is kind of an update to it because Charlemagne the Fraud made The View look very, very stupid, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. But the point is this right here. This right here should not be perpetuated on children, and obviously the Supreme Court is kind of sort of being forced to step in here. I felt that Tennessee was correct in this case because obviously Tennessee, it's a states' rights issues. Most people will say, look, you can do this right here in this state over here, but not this state over here. I had the exact same feeling when it came to the topic of gay marriage. I personally am not in favor of gay marriage, never have been in favor and never will be. However, I do believe and do feel that it is and should be a states' rights issue. But of course, we've also got Supreme Court justices here that are doing what? Comparing this to interracial marriage. We'll get to that here in a second. I'm pretty sure you guys know exactly which Supreme Court justice that I'm talking about. The point is this right here. This right here could set a precedent that could ultimately put an end to the nonsense that we are dealing with here. But then again, though, there is the conversation about the there and after. I'll get to that more so towards the end of the video, but I want to go ahead and get to this bit right here because, like I said before, we got to discuss on exactly how it is that Supreme Court justices are going to rule, and I'm kind of getting the impression here that, yeah, SCOTUS isn't exactly buying what this person is selling. But there is one justice, of course, that we know for sure that is, in fact, buying what he's selling. And that right there, of course, is you know who.
The statute. That was sort of like the starting point. The question was whether it was discriminatory because it applied to both races and it wasn't, necessarily invidious or whatever. But, as I read the statute here, the case here, the court starts off by saying that Virginia is now one of 16 states which prohibit and punish marriages on the basis of racial classifications. And when you look at the structure of that law, it looks in terms of, you can't do something that is inconsistent with your own characteristics. It's sort of the same thing. So it's interesting to me that we now have this different argument, and I wonder whether Virginia could have gotten away with what they did here by just making a classification argument the way that Tennessee is in this case.
Yes, I think that's exactly right, that there is absolutely a parallel between any law that says you can't act inconsistent with a protected characteristic and in all other contexts.
She actually had the nerve to compare this to interracial marriage. Guys, I don't have a problem with interracial marriage. I really and truly don't. I mean, look, me personally, I am a white guy. I prefer, obviously, a white woman, maybe a Hispanic woman, maybe, look, I'm a lover of all women, okay, except the ones I don't like. yeah, I said that. But the thing is this right here. I'm not against or opposed to interracial marriage. If you don't like me because of that, then you just don't like me because of that. I mean, I'm from the South. I've seen it. I've obviously seen people married into other races. But I got to be honest with you right now. The fear is that Clarence Thomas someday is going to want to put an end to that, even though he's married to a white woman. I think that Clarence Thomas's final ruling, the final act of his time in the U.S. Supreme Court, should be Loving v. Virginia. And just for shits and giggles, I would repeal it. It would be kind of hilarious to see the meltdown. No, I don't think he should do that, but I do think it would be absolutely hilarious. We shouldn't be surprised, though, that a diversity hire like Ketanji Brown Jackson would come up with this, especially given her past.
Senator, in my work as a judge, what I do is I address disputes. If there's a dispute about a definition, people make arguments, and I look at the law and I decide.
Well,
so I'm not.
The fact that you can't give me a straight answer about something as fundamental as what a woman is underscores the dangers of the kind of progressive education that we are hearing about.
Progressive education, folks, progressive education. However, she was not the only one. You also had Justice Sonia Sotomayor, who may retire here soon, hopefully, who decided to compare this to taking aspirin. Let's watch.
Minors have to have their bodies irreparably harmed for unproven benefits is one that is best left.
I'm sorry, counselor. Every medical treatment has a risk, even taking aspirin. there is always going to be a percentage of the population under any medical treatment that's going to suffer a harm. So the question in my mind is not, do policymakers decide whether one person's life is more valuable than the millions of others who get relief from this treatment? The question is, can you stop one sex from the other?
Aspirin's a blood thinner, a pretty effective blood thinner. I know this because I take aspirin. It's not the same. However, there was obviously one person that would obviously smack down the lunacy, and that right there would be the great Samuel Alito. Let's roll some of this.
The state of medical evidence at the present time. In your petition, you made a sweeping statement, which I will quote. Overwhelming evidence establishes that the appropriate gender-affirming treatment with puberty blockers and hormones directly and substantially improves the physical, psychological well-being of transgender adolescents with gender dysphoria. That was in November 2023. Now, even before then, the Swedish National Board of Health and Welfare wrote the following. They currently assess, quote, that the risks of puberty blockers and gender-affirming treatment are likely to outweigh the expected benefits of these treatments, which is directly contrary to the sweeping statement in your petition. After the filing of your petition, of course, we saw the release of the Cass report in the United Kingdom, which found a complete lack of high-quality evidence showing that the benefits of the treatments in question here outweigh the risks. And so I wonder if you would like to stand by the statement that you made in your petition, or if you think it would now be appropriate to modify that and withdraw the statement that there is overwhelming evidence establishing that these treatments have benefits that greatly outweigh the risks and the dangers.
I, of course, acknowledge, Justice Alito, that there is a lot of debate happening here and abroad about the proper model of delivery of this care and exactly when adolescents should receive it and how to identify the adolescents for whom it would be helpful. But I stand...
Hey guys, I'll let that play on a little bit longer. I'll link everything in the description box. If I played everything, the video would probably end up being close to 45 minutes to an hour. I didn't want to make this video that long. But here's the thing that needs to be said, because there was one more thing that was brought up in the Alito portion that obviously you guys didn't hear, but it was the emotional hostage-taking situation. You see, a lot of times these kids who believe that they are a different sex, a lot of these kids will say stuff like, if I can't be a little girl, then I would just die. And if I can't, they would say stuff like that there, because this is one of the ways that they try to manipulate their parents into getting them the surgery. These were little kids. But then again, though, you also heard that person say that they want to go as low as 2 years old. That kids know at 2 years old that they are whether a boy or a girl. 2 years old. Two, as Donald Trump would say, dos. That right there is how low they're willing to go. 2-year-olds can't even form an adequate sentence. Most of them can't, damn it, walk, and the ones that do walk, you see in a restaurant, you see in a bar, and they're sitting down, and they're raising hell, and they're terrible twos, and you just keep thinking to yourself about that moment in The Karate Kid when he said, sweep the leg. You just want to sweep the damn child's leg. Obviously, I'm kidding. That right there is not what the hell I want to do. Obviously, I got little kids, nieces, nephews. Well, not no children of my own, but you guys know what I'm saying. Little cousins, whatnot. Nobody wants to harm children. And that right there is the reason why it is that we are the way we are about this issue. These 2 years old little kids, they can't make up their minds. This right here should be common sense to these people, but as you guys can obviously see, these people are in fact loons. I know I promised you guys I would try to behave myself for the purpose of this video, but obviously I lied. But what happens going forward? What happens after the Supreme Court ultimately rules? Which, by the way, the Supreme Court probably will rule 7-2 in this case, because Elena Kagan is a lib, but she's actually an intellectual lib, and she was actually pretty strong on the Trump case as well, not the immunity one, but I'm pretty sure that she's probably going to come out here and say that, yeah, I don't think I'm okay with this, so it's probably going to be a 7-2 ruling. It could be 6-3. I mean, it could be 5-4. I'd be stunned if it was 5-4, but I'm pretty sure we have a pretty strong idea after what Alito said there that they're probably going to rule against this, especially given the data that's on tap. But there is one more thing, too, that needs to be said. The Supreme Court doesn't typically like to get involved in cases like this because they don't like the idea of legislating from the bench. Supposedly, this right here is what happened in the Obamacare ruling. A lot of us felt that they were going to rule 5-4 against the conservatives in that case, especially on the individual mandate. And the swing justice we were expecting to be Anthony Kennedy. Turned out Anthony Kennedy, who was in fact a swing justice, was actually quite based during that court ruling, and it was Supreme Court Justice John Roberts who screwed us. However, John Roberts does not have Barack Hussein Obama around to intimidate him anymore, so I highly doubt that Roberts is going to rule on the side of the ACLU. If anything, more than likely he's going to uphold Tennessee's law, but still at the same time, though, there are surprises out there. However, I highly doubt that will be the case here because, like I said before, the Supreme Court doesn't really and truly like taking matters like this up. However, I did say, and I did allude to this earlier, and I got off track, and that right there was what happens next going forward. Well, you're probably going to see protests. You're probably going to see these people marching out in the street. But then again, at the same time, though, this is exactly how evil these people are. And I don't mean evil because it's their actual nature. I'm saying that because obviously there is something demonic within these people. Yes, I'm bringing up my Christianity. It seems to me like it's a demonic spirit that's gotten a hold of these people that's trying to make them come after our kids. Yes, I said that. I don't really care. And that right there is what the hell we're dealing with. So even if the Supreme Court smacks us down, we're probably going to have to deal with the protesting crowd. I have no idea how long it's going to last. You probably got me on that one there. But like I said before, these takes right here are kind of a 2024 postmortem. But you guys, please tell me what you think. Please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign up in the comments, and I'll see you guys later.